again. I made it. Oh, it's trying its best. It's Monday, the 7th of July, 2025, and we have an interesting focus on the Jodie Whittaker years in the light of an interview to Radio Times Jodie has given. It seems she has just realised something we all said, but it also invites us to take a look at an era a lot of us found difficult and troublesome. As I say, this channel includes all eras, and that's the point. You will always get our true opinion, but no era of Doctor Who is cancelled or blocked. Everyone is welcome, and I think that's really important. Otherwise we get nowhere, do we? Otherwise we'll be talking about the same blooming thing every week. So, get my friend on, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, John Yulden, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, mate. How you doing? You all right?
Well, let's hope the crackling isn't
You're
happening this
good.
time.
You're good. Full tech, 100% capacity right now, mate.
I'm
You're
up to
doing fine.
100% capacity, yes. Everybody wonders whether I'm actually even going to do these half the time if I go late. But yes, the Jodie Whittaker years, you never thought I'd be saying let's do a stream on that, did you?
No, I didn't. You cruel, vindictive individual. Thank you very much for this. Wonderful. Appreciate it.
So some of us are going to feel some pain tonight, but equally some people who might be in our thread might say, "Oh, I like this era." So that's it. It takes all. That's the point.
Yeah.
And I'm open for revisionism. So we're going to be looking at, and I can see a spelling error there. That I was going so fast today. I apologise. Characterization of the 12th Doctor. Hey, this one I've changed this. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jodie hopeful because she's the 12th Doctor. That's a very strange one, isn't it? That's a gremlin from the past. Characterization of the 12th Doctor. Jodie, hopeful and positive characterization is what she wanted. Emotional connection and canon, she said. Relationship with Yaz. Chibnall wanted it groundbreaking and inclusive. Accessible and standalone stories. And controversial choices. Yeah. Oh, and then Brendan gets back to 12th era. Isn't it weird? And Jodie went on about her mistakes, and the main one was the pacing of her speech. Or if I was going to do Jodie, yeah, that kind of thing. Limited regrets other than that, but Chibnall mentioned minor adjustments he would make, production challenges he faced, and obviously the divisive storytelling choices that he partook in. It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting area. How far can we go? This is a freebie. How far can we go without saying timeless children?
Okay. I'm going to try and get through most of it without saying it, mate. You know, because you know that tends to cause my body to convulse whenever I say it. So I don't want to say it. Okay.
Yeah, we will try our best. But so we'll start with actually, as the thumbnail said, Jodie's regrets. And it's interesting, as soon as she is giving an interview about her Big Finish performances, she suddenly starts saying, well, I've taken a look now and had a think about how I was delivering my lines. And it just makes me think, John, listen, the production values were good under Chibnall, and they have been for quite a while, actually. The BBC have put their money into it. Is the showrunner, they're not even producers, is the showrunner not saying in the takes to a director or directly to Jodie, can we just play around with this? Where's the actual discussion about the characterization? It seems to me with Jodie and later with Shooty that nobody's given any direction.
No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, the whole situation with Chibnall, you know, started at the beginning where, you know, the big rumor was, you know, allegedly that he told her not to watch any previous eras of Doctor Who, didn't he? You know, to prepare for the role, and you know, that was part of the error that he made. But you know, you're right. You know, if you're looking at the dailies and the rushes, you would think, well, hang on a minute. Great, okay, Jodie, but just slow it down a notch. Slow it down. You know, and I always felt, you know, and again, I'm on record. I didn't watch all of her era, but she was just trying to do almost like a low budget Tennant impersonation, and that's part of the problem. I think with Big Finish, the credit I will give Big Finish is Big Finish know how to actually soften a character and to craft a character a lot better than, you know, Chibnall and co can. I mean, you know, you look at the Sixth Doctor and what they did. They really did a great work with the Sixth Doctor. So they're obviously trying to do that with Jodie Whittaker's interpretation of the Doctor now. But again, you're right. Someone should have been directing her right from the start and just slow it down, you know.
But it's the main program, isn't it? I mean, if Big Finish do that, and yes, I've hardly listened to any Big Finishes, but if that's kind of a trend that happens, you think, well, the main program with the big books and with the big showrunners and with the big power plays that they do, and with heavy, you know, powerful directors, does nobody sit down? I mean, with the Shooty era, obviously I've said that RTD has given interviews saying he saw the rushes and then he adapted his script according to the rushes, but he did not tell Shooty how to play it. And in Jodie's case, you're going, but every doctor normally tries to change what they've followed. So Peter Davison's very different to Tom Baker, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
David Tennant was so popular, and yes, we'd had Matt Smith in between, but to be honest, and if she was given a cheap imitation, it looked like, of David Tennant, surely Chibnall, directors, somebody, her husband, will have said, "Oh, it looks a bit similar." But you know what, John? This is the trap I think that we've been in New Who throughout now, which is when people join New Who, they only refer to New Who. The writers
Yep.
only refer to New Who. And it's like it has become this cancerous growth now. It only looks at that era, it doesn't look further. And so basically, you've got the fact that, well, who was a popular doctor? David Tennant. I think that's the default doctor. So
Yeah.
I'll copy him. And you're going, no, no.
100%. And I think also that they only go back into classic Who when they're looking to plunder it, you know, and they're looking to go, and you know, that old saying that you hear time and time again, you know, we've updated it for a modern audience, you know, that rubbish, you know. And we had that with Sutek, we've had that with Omega. But you're right, not one person is basically saying to them, why don't you have a look back at the classic era, you know, and see if you can get, you know, a bit of a riff off of some of the things that doctors were doing in previous decades. But it always seems to be that they seem to think, well, Tennant was a popular doctor in his era, therefore you have to be like Tennant. And it's been like that, you know. You can even see it to an extent that Shooty, they even to an extent, yeah, they made him the first gay doctor, but they were still trying to riff elements of Tennant in his performance, I think, you know. And it's just old hat now, isn't it? And it's
Oh, yeah.
showing in the viewing figures.
I'm getting sick, and I'm seeing some JWC reviews. Good to see you again, Dr. Rick. New one on me. Good to see you. Damage control in full effect. Jodie and Shooty were disastrous, idiotic choices. You're allowed that opinion on this channel.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing back too much on. um, each to their own, isn't it? I mean, oh, here we go. Is everybody ready? I'm 9 minutes in. It hasn't taken long. Um, talking to my
Bottle of ketchup. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Here's the hint, everybody, again, just in case you don't know what I'm talking. So yeah, basically talking to a media insider, they were quite surprised at somebody like Jodie being chosen for the Doctor, for the first female Doctor, because number one, the costume, the pantaloons, and all that just wasn't flattering. I know that was her choice, but then the other thing was the way it was played, and she's I don't know, she's a soap actress. She's that kind of, she does TV dramas, but you need a character actor, and bless her, she's not a character actor.
Do you know? Do you know what I don't understand about this time, about going back to the Jodie Whittaker era, is if you're going to go down that route, and again, I'm on record, I didn't agree with it. I don't agree with a female doctor, but if you're going to go down that route, you get the strongest female actor there is out there. or you draw up a short list and you put them on that list. You don't just go, right, Chris Chibnall, I worked with her in this production. She's part of the company, so we'll cast them. You go with the strongest out there, because if you're going to push the message that anybody can be the Doctor, and the Doctor's also female, you've got to make it the first one. You've got to make it as strong as possible. But they didn't. They cast somebody who was, just not very good in the role at all. And it destroyed their argument, didn't it?
You need to elevate the page. You need a character actor whose voice, whose charisma can elevate the script. Because let's face it, we've got to be honest, some of the Doctor Who scripts over the years have been a little bit kind of,
Yeah.
pants. But the actor can elevate it.
Yes.
Now, Norman, I will get on with the news in a minute, but thank you everyone. And Nomad Dinaz, Jodie Whittaker and regret in the same sentence from the media bubble. Get out of here. Christmas is 5 months away yet. But thanks. I saw you saying that earlier. Thanks for that. And I will say thanks in my usual way. Shall I give... Right, okay then. I'll say thanks. Here we go. Hello. There you go. Total nonsense there, but thank you very much, Normandiza. I can't speak tonight. So the news was basically Doctor Who's Jodie Whittaker reveals regret about how she played the 13th Doctor. She's been translating her on-screen performance, blah, blah, blah. It was a look. It was a look, wasn't it? Anyway, as Jodie Whittaker talks about being the 13th Doctor, Brendan tonight has been calling her the 12th Doctor and the 13th Doctor. She'll be the 14th Doctor next. I don't know if my meds are kicking in and what's going on here. The actress who broke new ground for the show as the first ever female Doctor played the Time Traveller for 4 years. Speaking about the biggest challenge in translating her performance, the biggest challenge, I speak really quickly and I think on film. Because of the edit, you can get away with maybe tripping over something. They've got it on another angle. I'll just finish this off, just so we've got it there. There she is reading the script. I basically pitched the Doctor too quick, but I did it in my very first episode and I've regretted it ever since. There's a few questions I've got here. Okay, we've mentioned the similarity to David Tennant, and I didn't approve of that really. I sometimes wondered whether it was trying to show off. I can do Hamlet quickly if you want, that kind of thing. But you're not emphasizing lines and prefixes and suffixes and really trying to get the consonants out and emphasis. But the other thing is, okay, she went too fast in the first episode, like she was on helium. How come she didn't reflect herself? How come she didn't have somebody then come to her saying, have you tried to play it this way? Or have Chris Chibnall say, right, well, we've pitched it that way. Let's try and see a different version of the Doctor in episode 3. Are there no discussions anymore in television?
But I mean, it's madness, mate. And, I'm not a specialist in this, but isn't that what acting is? You evaluate your performance and then you adapt your performance if you think that it wasn't quite right in the first instance. I mean, you look at Sylvester McCoy, his first iteration of the Doctor, the 7th Doctor, completely different when you get to his final 2 seasons. It's because he adapted as he went along and the scripts got stronger. But you've got an entire run. You're telling me that you can't adapt throughout your performance throughout that season, how you portray the Doctor? You could slow your performance down. I just don't understand it. It's just like that. Again, it does. It's like, it's passing the buck as well as part of the blame, isn't it? In a nice way, it's kind of saying, well, I wasn't, I spoke too quickly, but, really that's putting it out there. Like you just said, other to say, well, why didn't other people talk to her about her and rein her in on it? You know, it's a group collaboration. Um, it's quite baffling. It
I think
really is.
I think it's an indictment. The BBC gets more and more pious and lecturing on certain things, and yet I see so many examples of them not utilizing their budget and utilizing all their staff members to do what they're paid to do. And a director and a showrunner should be doing what they're called. The Objective Observer Shortman, there's some interesting titles, aren't there? Both were given questionable directing. The script and stories also came across as either phoned in or bizarre. Both are good actors, charismatic, shame, but it is what it is. Listen to the fans. Oh, they'll never do that. Oh,
I,
that'll never catch on.
I think also, mate, you know, you're talking about, what was it, 2017. So this is peak diversity, equity, and inclusion time. And there more than there is now, there was an arrogance there to think, right, we're going to gender swap the Doctor. That is going to be a knockout success regardless. You know, that's just going to work because that's what everybody wants. And again, that was the early signs that it's not what everybody wants, you know, and it was rejected by the majority of the public. Um, there's a minority following of Jodie Whittaker, but you know, it was borne out. It was rejected by the general public, and you know, we're now in a different era where maybe they're looking back on these things now, and they're starting to come out with these interviews more and more.
Well, as Anthony Parkinson says, they made a big thing of it being 4 years with Jodie Whittaker, one of the longest running doctors. And she's just realised now that she was maybe pitching it wrong. I mean, for God's sake. And this is the problem. Whereas this show gets longer and longer and longer, when RTD in his latest version says, I don't want them talking about the classic doctors and I don't want them looking back at the past regarding performance wise. Well, how are they going to pitch it? And if they
Yeah.
pitch it wrong, regret's a horrible thing to have. And she's got to face that now, thinking, oh my God, listen to what I'm like in the programme. But you see, there's an awful lot of relish going on in the thread and in some parts of fandom because of, again, how she launched herself into this. And I have to remind everybody that while she's now having kind of revisionist thoughts, this is where this all started. Okay, so if I just set this up properly so we can see it properly, get myself ready here. So she goes on to explain, this is when she was launching herself into Doctor Who. What Chris wanted to do, particularly in the cast and in the story, is reflect the world we live in today. Very often, we're only seeing stories being told through the white male gaze. This may explain the progressive stance when it came to the narrative in Series 11. Instead of the usual light-hearted subject matter that dealt with Daleks and bizarre alien races, we got 1940s colonial India and the segregated southern state of Alabama in 1950s America. White men were often depicted as bigoted and terrible fathers. Blah, blah, blah. Right, so we know where we ended up, and this was the same problem with Shooty with the Go and Touch Grass. And it just seems to me that every time now the BBC picks somebody who representationally breaks the mould, the first female, the first black doctor, the first gay doctor, that they then go on these kind of lecturing tours and overspeak and then get half the fandom at least with their backs up.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, my friend. And you
Sorry.
know, this was a time where, if we all remember correctly, the BBC put out that cocky little trailer where
Yeah.
it was the glass ceiling and she's cockily pointing up at it as it shatters. And I remember saying at the time, and I stand by it, you know, how about you do that after your run is finished, when you've made a success of it? But this was peak 2017 where they were cocky before they started, and RTD and Co carried it on with the, like you said, the touch grass and the arrogance. The fact of the matter is, what I laugh at now, we were criticized just like you had in that slip there, that screenshot there, mate. Was she? They talked about us at the time as being, you know, sexist and phobes because, you know, we dared to say we don't like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. We are doing exactly what we did then what exactly what she's doing now. We critiqued the performance of the Doctor, and that's exactly what Jodie is doing now. But again, at the time, we were called vile things by people that didn't accept that, you know, because you cannot criticize the first female Doctor. But here we are with Jodie Whittaker, like you say, now coming out talking about all of this, that a few years ago we were all being attacked for daring to say, hang on a minute, this just isn't good
It's
enough.
Yeah, I had a double whammy one year because basically we had the Brexit vote, so I had to go through watching lots of strange teachers in corridors, all crying and hugging, and I thought a kid had died. I didn't realize it was just a vote, and then not it was around this period that we got the Jodie Whittaker Doctor announcement, and I got we've got the crying because of Brexit, and then suddenly I had all these teachers come out of the woodwork, all saying, knowing I was a Doctor Who fan, going, "You must be so happy." And again, it was a bit of a test as well. But a lot of female staff were saying, "This is brilliant, isn't it, for representation?" And of course,
No.
I played it safe. You have to. Um, and I just thought, well, let's see. Of course, me and Jamie were going on about, yeah, there was the announcement during Wimbledon when she took her hood off, and you saw the nails, and then you thought, oh God. But actually, it was when they started advertising that first season, it was all very, I don't know, it was very feminine and breaking the glass wall. Remember
Yeah,
that?
it was. I mean, it was all again. What? And again, this was peak 2017 when the whole woke era had started to accelerate, and it was all of the advertising similar to season one of RTD and Shooty, really, where it was all, look at us, we're so brilliant, glass ceiling, you know, first female Doctor, and then you'd have the articles. You also, if you recall, you had do you remember you had the video where Jodie was reading out people's comments, and it was all about, oh, you know, some guy, I don't agree with a female Doctor, I'm paraphrasing, and she do that horrible face she does like she did as a Doctor. And it was like, that's not the way to get people on board for your iteration of Doctor Who. And again, this is something that they've not figured out from Jodie Whittaker onwards. They seem to think that they can attack people for stating reasonable views about the show. Yes, you're going to get idiots out there. That's going to happen. But when people state reasonable things about the show and the direction it's going in, and they come back with all of this sludge, you've alienated your audience.
I suppose the thing was, the Shooty seemed to get the argument in early, didn't he? Because he was telling us to touch grass before
Yeah,
even his season started, and it was almost like saying, "Well, you must be questioning because of who I am or what I look like."
yeah,
But she did the white male gaze really early on, and she was basically saying what actually RTD said in that interview last week, the one we broke to the world, the
yeah,
one that basically when he said that sci-fi was too straight, too full of testosterone and everything, and the BBC seemed to have been badgering after changing that direction and opening it to female representation for quite a while now, and it didn't. Unfortunately, their choices did not work. Their scripts did not work. Their representation didn't work. They just put it together badly. Craig Dunlop here. I'd argue we still haven't had a female Doctor. Sure, the body changed gender, but there was no adjustment required by a Time Lord that had been male for the last 2,000 years, glossed over just a bit. Yeah, they missed the whole point. I kept thinking she was going to be savvy, basically play men like a fiddle. You know, that
mm,
there's ways you could do it. She may not be able to overpower them or anything, but she could use other skills.
yeah.
And the Doctor's never been a hero like a Marvel hero anyway, so it's never really been about strength or anything.
I agree 100%, and I think you had that. you had that problem with the show as well, where you're talking about the characterization, but you just nailed it there. It was starting to go even more and more like it was like a Marvel show, where it wasn't a Doctor Who show. They were trying to push things, in that kind of, how can I put it, what you would call a Disney Plus style show now, which just didn't grip with me. But then, like I said to you, I'm on record. I tuned out after, I think it was the Arachnids one in Sheffield, and then I came back for the Timeless Children. I've said it. I just said it, and I came back for that because people were saying what they were going to do, and I watched it because I thought they won't do that. There's no way they'll do that. That'll be suicide. No, they did that.
Yeah.
And again, it's an example for the history books of how you destroy an RP, because I would say that it was in this era that the damage started, and then literally you got Shooty and RTD that are just finishing the job. The analogy I would give is you've got someone unconscious on the pavement, and then RTD and Shooty come along afterwards and start kicking him in the balls. That's where we are with Doctor Who at the moment. But it's
Where
history now.
we're given a lot of talk. I mean, we're talking about Jodie Whittaker talking about this, but actually we've mentioned Shooty. I wonder where he is. Hold on a minute.
Give me the loving.
Now give me
Access denied.
There you go. So we're going to try and keep a lookout for Shooty everywhere, and he's been seen in some nightclubs, but not much else. So there you go. There's our Shooty update. So we're a live news channel, and we've got people everywhere, on spies everywhere. So basically, that was our Shooty watch.
Yeah, classic. Absolute classic, my friend.
So this thing about speaking quickly, should we just talk about acting for a second? Kids are watching. You know that some of the words you're using are complicated. You know that some of the explanation is pseudoscience and is complicated. So you make an acting decision to say it as fast as you can to get it out the way? Or why don't you make the choice to go slower? The classic Davros insubordination, and you clinically do a Michael Wisher on it. I don't think Tom Baker was ever guilty of doing this. He would pitch it. John Pertwee, he really could elucidate. Patrick Troughton, great voice actor as well as character actor. I mean, these people sold the lines. They didn't trample on them. And I just wonder, is this because the psychobabble, the science babble increased, like all the froth, all the timey-wimey nonsense in the new era? Was it because of that? And they just have to get it, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in the old days, it wasn't as bad. And so is it that the actors are just trying to get out the way because it means nothing to them and they can't be asked looking? Do you know what? If it was Shakespeare, they'd be going, so I think the poetry here is telling me that death is an illuminating experience. Is that what you think? And they'll discuss it because they respect the fact that it's Shakespeare. When they get a bit of script that says, the block computation, this, that, the other, they think, I'll say it dead fast. And I'll point, and I'll have my sonic screwdriver at a funny angle, and we're going, and that's it. Yeah. Really, are these the acting choices we're making?
I think so. But again, I'm not an expert. I'd never claim to be an expert. But surely, isn't that part of the director's job? Part of the direction to basically, give notes and say, look, let's go again, let's do another one, but just slow it down a notch, slow it down, breathe, and but that doesn't seem to have been the case, does it? It just seems to be that she was given carte blanche to play it however she wanted to play it. Okay, fair enough. But you would have expected somebody to have seen it and gone, okay, maybe we need to go back and do this again.
Well,
And again, that's the trouble I find, mate, with these productions now, and you've got it in the current era. It seems to be almost like they're compromised because they're almost on a friendly level, you know?
there's that, and there's also, we are so determined to just push the representation, we don't challenge it. It's a bit like in society now, there's certain things you can't say because you don't
Yeah.
want to look as though you're a bad person. It's all nonsense. And so we've chosen a female actor to play the first female Doctor, and we're just going to let that go. And we won't give her any directing notes or anything, because that would maybe look a bit paternal, that might make it look a bit patrician. We don't want to look a little bit
Yeah.
sexist. Let her ride. And of course, the trouble is, you've got to make sure it works. Where's the commission editor? Where's the big production teams above, all them departmental heads, who every time we had a new Doctor would say, can we see the first rushes, please?
Yeah.
Can we see the first episode? And we'll discuss it. And call Chris Chibnall in, and then they'll decide if they're going to have a talk to Jodie. Surely they took it seriously. Oh, hold on, you didn't. You just thought we'd already done the achievement by picking her, and after that, we don't have to care. Oh, I get it now. Classic BBC. But my source was saying that this is the problem with the BBC. They don't like Doctor Who. They don't watch Doctor Who. They have no interest in it. And if we start yapping with criticisms, they'll turn off even more. That's what my source said. There you go.
Well, I would say about these people, these BBC people, if that is how they feel, then they failed in their duty in the roles that they're meant to be conducting in the BBC, and they should be replaced from those roles because they've effectively taken their eye off of the ball, and they've allowed an IP to be seriously, if not fatally, damaged. That's on them, and that's the people above them.
But John,
Hmm.
sorry, don't you get that impression though that they're not thinking about the franchise is an important commodity as long as they keep seeing the cash tills working. They're
Yeah.
more bothered about that they've done something to use it as a platform for change,
Yes.
and they can now go home to their homes in Cornwall and south of France and game over.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. But then there should be people going, well, remember how you talked about how brave, stunning and brave we are, that we're pushing forward with diversity and the first female Doctor, and then later on the first gay Doctor, and all of the trans comments that we put in the show. Don't that you went with that was your decision, on your head be it, but you've tanked the IP, you've tanked the franchise. We didn't care about the show specifically. We cared about how much money it was potentially making for us. Now, the merchandise is not being purchased. You've got T-shirts with Shootie's face on it at $1.99, and 90p. This is an example of where they've destroyed a brand. And again, this is happening worldwide. This is on other franchises and IPs. Exactly the same thing has happened. And these people should be removed from their positions for what they've done. But you're right, they won't be, will they? They'll just carry on.
So we had the first gay Doctor, it basically tanked. First black Doctor, it basically tanked. First female Doctor, it basically tanked. First trans character and unit, it tanked because she wasn't given a role. In the end, this representation game is not working.
No.
Because they're not sitting down to do proper meetings to actually think of authentic characters and to think of authentic narratives for them. It's just so superficial that they actually just throw it at us, and then it's almost that they're baiting us to say, you criticize it and you're a bad person. But you're going, I know, but there's no story.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the characters are not well crafted, three-dimensional characters. You don't have, in 2005, I had no problem with Captain Jack as a character because they built the character over that season. You know, now they don't. I mean, you look at these first stories. You know, I'm jumping forward into the Shooty and RTD era. They instantly tell you about that they're trans before you even know anything really about the character. Build the character first, then talk about your representation if that's what you want to do. But they don't do that. It's almost like they're in a rush to get the message to you, you know?
Yeah. Popcorn Power, good to see you. Representation is not a substitute for talented writers. I so agree. And is that six? That's them done with box ticking. Now they're hopefully back to male actors. Oh yeah. Well, they'll try their best. Their best to do something different, won't they?
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to show you before we move on to what Chibnall's regrets were, he did have a few, was of course she did come back for a moment for the Shooty regeneration, and of course they still give her that blather again. You know, let's be honest, I was the best. Okay, let's say best male. Oh God, RTD, boring. What? How are you here? I know I shouldn't be here at all. Cause and effect is getting a little bit out of order. Well, I'm surprised it's not the other guy. He's always turning up. You've redecorated. I don't like it. Does it really need to be bigger in a room defined by its bigness? I mean, she's then given a complicated bit, which even in a loose, she hated doing it. Those lines look dead easy. I mean, gosh, a Shakespearean actor would find that a walk in the park.
Yeah, just I mean, again, nothing says that both of those doctors are a complete and utter success by the fact that they actually have to have them appear together and basically tell you that they're the best. You know, if you know, there's not a more scathing indictment that's coming from their own mouths, really. You know, to double down and say something in an episode like this. But again, I will give Jodie Whittaker credit though. In that scene with Shooty Gatwa, she was by far the better actor in those scenes. You know, I will give her credit for that.
You see, but I know what you mean. I have a problem with RTD. It's like it's just cut and paste. You know that line she was given, "You've redecorated." We know the original line.
Yeah.
Over 60 years of Doctor Who, do we just go back to the same sound bites? Or can we not just, I mean, honestly, do we not, does that mean I could maybe be the showrunner and just do cut and paste
Yeah.
three Doctors moments? I mean, I'm trying to work this out.
100%, mate. And do you know what? Do you know what? And this is new Who. What really annoys me now is the fact that, you know, even that comment there with 13,
Yeah.
cause and effect is getting a bit out of order. You know, 3 doctors, they establish that the second doctor shouldn't be there and they explain the reasons how he got there. You know, now they don't even bother doing that anymore. It's just a quick reference, you know, out of the gob to basically say, oh, yeah, cause and effect's getting a bit out of order. And then that's it. They're onto it because they make a quick reason for the two of them to be in the same set together in the console. It's lazy.
Now, you mentioned McCoy changed over the years, meetings, Andrew Cartmel, all the rest of it. Go darker. She says here, I basically pitched the Doctor too quick, but I did it in my first episode and I've regretted it ever since. Well, isn't it... Why can't we just kind of gradually just kind of, you know, for example, Colin Baker's Doctor in the Twin Dilemma did something that he probably didn't like his Doctor doing. It wasn't his launch pad that he wanted, but he adapted it and he just made sure that he showed, you know, a quieter version, you know, a more collegiate version with Perry. It was, I don't see why you can't change. You're an actor on a big show, and they give you freedom, but part of that freedom is you to make creative, responsible decisions. And if you think you've pitched it a bit wrong, just change. We've all seen John Pertwee, remember in Spearhead from Space? Very comedic, but he wasn't like that as he went through.
No. You know, and again, you got the other side of it. You got Capaldi when he started. He was a very, very dark Doctor. You know, you got into the Dalek, where the ship explodes and the girl's in the TARDIS pointing the gun at him, and he basically says to her, "No, get it right." He's a very angry Doctor, but he mellows as the seasons go along. Here, what they always talk about diversity. Okay, great. You want to talk about diversity? I get it, but people want to see a development of the character. You can stick to the core element of the character but still develop it, but there was no development from the beginning to the end, and it does concern me about the decision makers. If Jodie Whittaker is now coming out and saying that she was speaking too quickly in the first episode and decided that she didn't want to course correct the following recordings, what does that what does that say? What does that say about what her feelings were, what the the producers' feelings were, what the director's feelings were? As you were kind of alluding to a few minutes ago, where was the collaboration? There should have been an open collaboration there to get to where they needed it to be. I was watching extras for a show I love called Jonathan Creek last week, and the directors there were saying, well, when they had Caroline Quentin and Alan Davies there, Alan Davies, they said, was at maximum right from the word go, and Caroline Quentin, she built over time. So what the director cleverly did is he basically just did take after take after take. So Caroline Quentin's performance was coming up and Alan Davies was coming down, so they met in the middle. That's what a good director should do, but it doesn't sound like even that was done.
I just wonder whether they've patted themselves on the head before the woman who fell to earth even was shown, and they were too
glass
busy
ceiling.
they were too busy doing marketing, saying, "Aren't we amazing?" And then we'll leave Chris Chibnall just to get on with it now because it's that tedious sci-fi show that we have nothing to do with. But once it does some great box ticking, we're all over it like a rash. We want to get the glory. David Harding, in classic Who, the Doctor you got in the first story was rarely the Doctor you had when they were just about to regenerate. It's possible for Doctors to evolve as characters even with the regeneration. Very true. The point is, you need the actor, especially the actor, to take responsibility for their acting, to take a look at the rushes, to actually look at their performance, to talk about their performance, to ask people to evaluate their performance and take it from there. Now, I've got to say this, it falls into my argument, but basically, I was a teacher once. And
Really?
but we were taught for years to self-evaluate every lesson. So even if the kids behaved and all the rest of it, you have to judge, well, that doesn't mean it's a good lesson, blah, blah, blah. I just wish these people at the BBC on well-paid jobs were taught humility, to self-evaluate, because I was taught to do it, and you know what I was. Did you know? I'm Brendan Noble, former teacher. Yes, we know who you are.
Oh, hello.
Doctor, wouldn't mind cloning you. Typical sense sphere. Well, there you go. It falls in every time. But here, she says in the Radio Times, so she talks about talking too fast. But then this bit, I didn't quite get this, Because her doctor regenerated into David Tennant's 14th, I always felt Jodie and Ncuti were owed a moment together. Why?
Yeah.
Which is a strange thing to think. Yeah, it is. Because had one regenerated into the other, they'd still never have met. But you know what I mean? There was a missing link between them. Hold on. This is like saying that William Hartnell always felt as though he should have had a moment with John Pertwee. What?
Yeah. It's meant to be the same being. This is what this is where we are now, isn't it? It's not about talking about from a characterization point of view about, right, okay, this is the Doctor. It's talking about the Doctor as how we see the Doctor outside of the show. That's what they do now. They project it out and go, they needed to see. No, they didn't. You know, just like the second Doctor and the third Doctor never needed to see or meet each other, but there was a dire emergency threatening the universe, and that's what caused it. This was a contrived meeting with, you know, things are out of flux or whatever it is, you know, just to get them together and just to say they're the best. It's lazy beyond belief, and again, it just reeks of
It's
you
like
wanted
getting
to push your narrative.
it's like getting all those toys out your toy box, the ones
Yeah.
that you always discard and leave out. You know, you'd never played with, and all of a sudden thinking, "Oh, I'll get those out and shove them all together." There was an element of that because these were all the has-beens. You know, Peter Capaldi, as I'm not aware of any interview when he said, "Oh, I really would have preferred a link with David Tennant."
Yeah,
That's
I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? And it's nonsense just to give a big thumbs up to the small minority of people who care about that stuff. You know, and after that episode aired, I saw, I think I said to you, I saw an X, you know, they're entitled to what they like, but I saw an X, you know, there were tweets going out with photographs of Jodie and Shooty on there with a big heart in there going, oh, you know, they clearly love each other. And I was thinking, it's the same person. It's meant to be the same person. How do you not understand that? And again, that's where the show is directed towards now. It's people that don't actually, a lot of them don't actually understand the show. They
no.
just want the diversity and the romance element of it.
The classic living embodiment of virtue signaling is the signal is more important than the virtue. And
100%.
you know, look at these two representations of people. Oh, you
Yeah.
know, no, is there a story or is it just blather?
Exactly.
David Carden, if
Yeah.
Jodie Whittaker was unsatisfied by aspects of the way she played the Doctor, if she'd been advised to watch the classic series, she might have gotten some better ideas on how to play the character, or she'd have had a think herself. Jess, playing on certain aspects of history and ignoring or corrupting the truth to suit their narratives, from Jodie through to series 1 and 2, the final nail in the coffin? Question mark. More to say about that when I get a few confirmations from the above mentioned source. Obsolete but neat. Maybe Salamander's been clinging to the outside of the TARDIS all these years next to Sutek. Well, with Captain Jack as well. Remember, they're all outside.
Yeah, they're all there.
Honestly, it's like some dodgy night out.
It's like a book club, isn't it? You know, now everyone sits on the TARDIS and reads a novel. You know.
Yeah. But can I just confirm, everybody, in that Radio Times interview, she did say that was her only regret, right? So everything else holds true. And we will look at that in a minute. And just to remind you all, because I don't know whether you had some favourites for you. Now, John has been very honest about what he watched. He saw the first 4, then joined back at the end. I did watch all of them. There is not one Doctor Who I've failed to watch. So whether I've watched them 20 times or not is another matter. By the Ghost Monument, I was thinking, can I see the TARDIS, please? Can we have the theme music, please? I remember being very conflicted by all that sort of stuff. And I remember episode 1 there, the one that got 10 million, and I was thinking, oh my God, they've turned her into Superman, falling from space. Really? Really? How come the 4th Doctor died falling from a pylon? He was so close to the grass, and yet she fell from space and she just stood up going, ah, yeah. I mean, how did that happen?
I mean, that is where, you know, you started to get the viewpoint, the thought process that they just don't even care about canonically anything. They don't care about the universe itself that they're writing or they're writing their characters into. They're just basically making sure anything works for what they're putting onto a piece of paper. And, you know, that whole falling to earth was complete nonsense. And again, it was effectively kind of a copy of the 11th Hour that had been done with Matt Smith, really. You know, of him hanging on and almost falling out of the TARDIS. They just
And then we had, I mean, it was a worthy series. This I could see what he was trying to do, but it was quite. And but obviously by episode 10, the famously one draft of a script with the title that nobody can speak. Then you got Spyfall, Orphan 55, Praxeus, The Haunting of Villa Duarte, the Ascension of the Cybermen, and then the one that is unnamed. Um, and then, of course, sorry, I'll better make that bigger because I got it on a different Revolution of the Daleks, and then you've got the Flux series, and you've got them all set up there. Yeah, they're all there. Eve of the Daleks, Legend of the Sea Devils, and the Power of the Doctor. Just to remind you of an era that did happen. Now, so Chris Chibnall has referred to his regrets. So if everybody's got seconds in the thread to think, oh, has he? Oh, what were his regrets? She said she talked too fast. What did he say? Well, he basically said this: I would change a few little things. That's it.
If I could travel back in time, I'd change one critical fig, and that would be the showrunner. Oh, two things: showrunner and the Doctor, the actor that's playing the Doctor. Those two things.
We see he's teasing us all because he wouldn't, just like in a lot of scripts nowadays, they won't explain anything. Can't be bothered unless they're going unleashed. He says that, but he does not elaborate, everybody. So that's it. I would change a few little things, but he won't tell us what they are. So basically, is that to try and feign modesty? What is that? I mean, honestly, doesn't say much for me at all. So this is in essence what he's saying. So asked about whether he'd change anything, he explained a few little things, but we did so much. Look at what we did. Yeah, we are. And how much fun it was. No, I'm not sitting here thinking about what I'd change. None of us are. Oh my God. So let me just confirm this, John. We've got the leading actor playing the first female Doctor, and she hasn't really done any real evaluation until many years later. The showrunner, who makes a major pivot in a direction the Doctor's never been before, said, I'm not sitting here thinking of all the things I'd have changed. Is this just kind of trying to show strength of character, or is this trying to say I am determined that actually what we did for the greater good stands, and I'm not going to start undermining it now? Is it pretending to be strong when you're not? I'm not too sure. I'm convinced by all this.
Yeah, I think he knows a lot about what he'd change and about what he screwed up in that era. I think he will always be remembered now as one of the architects of the downfall of such a wonderful, much loved show. I think when you look back, this was the guy that in the late 80s was critiquing Pip and Jane Baker on TV about their writing of stories, and yet look at the absolute codswallop that he rolled out in his era. And I think you don't hear too much about him these days, and I think you're going to have these little tidbits every now and again where he basically says, oh yeah, we did wonderful stuff. Nobody, though, as you were kind of alluding to there, nobody puts him on the question of, well, explain what you did. What did you do? Explain it, because he's going down that route, I think, of what a lot of them do, and a lot of the Hollywood ones who've damaged shows have gone, well, we push diversity and all of that. That's their go-to line these days, and I think he's going along that route of, well, we had a female Doctor. Yeah, you didn't do much else, though, did you? Apart from damage the show, probably irreparably.
Well, we've got it's lovely to see new people join us. Grizz Redford, hopefully. If you discount the poor writing, the biggest problem I had with Jodie was when she said, I'm the Doctor. She never said it like she believed it. Well, part of the time was things were said fast, or things were abbreviated. I mean, I have to say, I really just find I was heavily torn by that phrase, fam. It just sounded so wrong with her Huddersfield accent. There's me, a northerner. I've got no problem with accents. It just didn't it just didn't sound acoustically right. It weakened her, it diminished her. I wanted her to have gravitas. I wanted her to have authority and IFM and all that stuff. The notorious moment when Graham thought he had cancer and she just stared at him. That goes down in Doctor Who history, doesn't it? It was just
Well,
that.
the social anxiety line or whatever it was, you
Yeah,
know,
I
that
mean, doctors have always, let's be honest, doctors have always had an issue with emotion. You know, the John Pertwee doctor, if we go back to the Green Death, he's on the outside watching Joe separate from him, and he's a bit clumsy about how he talks to the doctor and all the rest of it.
the trouble you've got, mate, just jumping quickly, apologies, is they can't have it both ways though. They can't go and humanize the doctor like they're doing and then essentially try and make the doctor, you know, socially awkward, you know, and ignore comments like that. You're either humanizing your version of the doctor, which means they have to address these sort of things, or you're not. You can't have them suddenly going, oh, okay, I don't understand that, but then 20 seconds later, you know, oh, we're going to talk about, you know, gay rights or something like that. You just can't do it, and they attempted to do that in their
If she
era.
was a ballsy woman, if she used feminine wiles, if she was the cleverest person in the room, then you've done really good female representation. As it was, the representation had to stand because of the fact that they'd already picked her. And that was just so lazy, so it's so vacuous. I mean, it actually shows you that it's so empty what they're doing at the BBC and the ITV and other places.
Yeah.
You know, I know as a gay man that when we have this strange Pride Month, it shouldn't be a month, it's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
All them companies who get rainbow flags everywhere and yet they also don't show them in certain other countries. I'm not convinced by them.
No.
I'm not convinced by their signalling, and I'd rather not have it. I'd rather see their deeds rather than their mouth. And there's too much in the BBC of saying, look at what we've just chosen. Aren't we good? And you're going, well, you haven't written the stories yet. Shall we just judge you later? And isn't it funny that Chris Chibnall is allowed to slag off Pip and Jane Baker and not be called names?
Yes.
Or
100%.
or a phobia or having some political affliction. No,
No.
he was allowed to do it. But when we do it, we must have a dodgy affliction and we are in denial. We are flat earthers.
Yeah, and can I also say, mate, you know, this shows why Doctor Who has failed and why it's compromised. Because when RTD came back and he you know, this is before we saw Jodie Whittaker in that shooty finale, where he basically said, "Look," and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Right, we're gonna recognise the Jodie Whittaker era. You know, I'm not gonna erase the good stuff that."
It's all right.
Sorry, yeah, I'm back. Yeah, sorry. I'm not gonna diminish the stuff that my colleague Chris Chibnall did. So, you know, that shows again how compromised this production is from the BBC and around it, because there should have been people there going, hang on a minute, the Jodie Whittaker era didn't do well for us at all. And now you're doubling down and you're basically saying, I wouldn't do that to a friend of mine, Chris Chibnall. Well, I'm sorry. The production of Doctor Who, the fan base, the legacy of the show comes way beyond your friendship with Chris Chibnall. And that's the trouble you've got. It's all about a little club making sure they're happy, not entertaining the general audience. That's where we are now.
So he wouldn't change a thing. We don't sit around thinking that, so they're very happy. He was happy with the ambition he showed to make forays into representation elsewhere. That's where he was happy. He's very happy that he tried what he would think is a brave decision with the timeless children. And do you know what he says, John, about the timeless children plot? That he was actually trying to do something new with the program. He wasn't doing the old, let's just have people running down a corridor again. I'm not doing all the old-fashioned stories. I'm trying to do something forward-thinking. Really? I'm not sure how forward-thinking it was to try and come up with an origin story.
Well, again, this, we talked about this in private about RTD coming back and pitching. The same thing should have happened with Chibnall. And they're basically, right, okay, give us your pitch for it. Oh, well, I want to do an origin story about the Doctor. I'm sorry, what? You do know the show's called Doctor Who, right? We don't want to know about the origin of the Doctor. And again, this is where me and you have talked in private about this before, but this is where whoever comes in to produce Doctor Who, they need to follow the legacy of the show, stick to the Bible, the core elements that cannot be changed, and then work around it. Chibnall and RTD, they've changed the show to fit their viewpoints, to fit their writing, because their writing doesn't fit into the Doctor Who universe. And that's what's happening now. That timeless children stuff should never have even got past first draft with anybody. They should have been pushing that back. If it was another era, full well, mate, that they would have pushed back on that. Terrible.
One of the regrets he says he's acknowledged, but it's not really a regret. It's like saying, I'm sorry for anything, any offence taken. You kind of do that one. It was the production and, of course, lockdown and COVID. And he said the reduced episode count and the erratic scheduling, he regrets that. But of course, he wasn't in charge of that. So that's the only regret we're here. Now, of course, this is what he and Jodie and the BBC are responsible for. You see where they're peaked. Yes, you can just see if it continued to the left to Matt Smith that it came up. It had been lower. So sorry, you've got the all the way down, and you see how it goes from season 11 to season 12 to flux. And then you see the little kind of bump as if there's a pulse when we get RTD experimenting with, the Tates and the Tennants. But you can see that the brand really started to tank. And I think what's dramatic is to get a regeneration story. You've got the Legend of the Sea Devils. The Power of the Doctor pulls her back a bit. But it's actually... The Power of the Doctor is all about average for season 12 on ratings. And look at the hope and the optimism in season 11, where most people were hoping to see something amazing. And each week when it wasn't, it went down a bit more, down a bit more, down a bit more. There's something about Doctor Who as a new Who formula that has this amazing ability to just lose viewers every week. Yet I see Race Across the World, Antiques Roadshow that either sustain an audience or build an audience. Why is Doctor Who so special at losing their audience? What is going on?
Could it be that the writing is subpar, the acting is subpar, and the general production is subpar? I think you got to get back to the basics, haven't you? And again, looking at those figures there, I mean, before you get to the Power of the Doctor, so what is it, Legend of the Sea Devils, where is at that point in history it hit rock bottom, for New Who. That was from everyone that's told me that was a terrible episode. Now, the Power of the Doctor, it got a bit of a lift. Why did it get a bit of a lift? Because it's a regeneration story, and then that was it. There was the talk about, the RTD was coming back. Everyone was preparing for what was to come. Poor sods. But that's where we were. So when they say, "Oh, we did good things," that's them trying to cope themselves now, because they know they must sit there regularly at home and go, "Do you know what? It wasn't well received, our era, was it? Not one bit."
And do you know one thing I will say? If people look, I mean, Tom Boyd Chick is saying that's a really shit roller coaster ride. But the truth is, your first female Doctor, everybody's interested, so you see the peak. Tennant and Tate coming back, it peaks again, but not as high. And we keep getting these moments. the law of diminishing returns. What you are seeing with the new Who formula is, and it'll be the same if Billy Piper was the introduction to a new Doctor. When you get stunt casting and you drag people back just for nostalgia's sake, and you grab them back for the ratings, which is Tennant and Tate,
Yeah.
female Doctor, same thing. Law of diminishing returns, because as soon as people start getting used to it, they go, oh, it's the same old. It's the same old. It's not that good. I thought there was a chance. And they get back off the bus again. This is what's happening, and that graph tells you that.
Yeah.
Sadako24, good to see you. I think people just didn't feel the fun of the show anymore. Well, season 11, Sadako, if you remember, it might have been worthy, but it was a bit dull. It was a bit dull. And the Doctor being female just made it feel too different. Not the same show they'd enjoyed. But people were watching to try it out. It's just that they failed to land it. Anthony Parkinson, the people behind the show actively hate the viewers, especially ones that dare to criticise them. That's why viewers desert the show. Why stay where you're not wanted? Well, it is a very toxic fandom nowadays because of this representation that's been forced in. And then, in a way, if I'm seeing the other side, people are trying to defend Jodie or defend Shooty because they feel as though, as a woman or as somebody non-binary or as somebody who's gay or black, they feel as though they have to defend that side. People aren't attacking that. They're attacking poor scripts, poor choices, poor acting decisions. That's what they're attacking. I didn't attack or criticise Shooty Gatwa. I was looking forward to him since he'd already been picked. Having seen him in Sex Education, once I saw him in action, I realised, oh, okay, I don't like this version of the Doctor if he's going to be running around rooftops and wittering on about, a summer of passion with Houdini. I'm not really into this. That sort of thing. So there you go. The ratings, just to give you evidence. Oh, Tectone. Oh, and all these. Oh, God, it's like, it gives me, So what did Jodie want from her character? What was her plan? And I have to say, you take a look at that. I don't remember that episode with the Fez, but my God, was that the beginning?
I remember briefly seeing it where she puts it on, and I was like, oh, okay. I think this was beyond her first season, wasn't it? Because I think her first season didn't do well. And then was it the second season where they started to bring back some more, how can I put it, some more monsters and some more references to previous eras, almost like to prop it up. And I think the Fez might have come in that one. Correct me, chat, if I'm wrong. But this is where we were with it. It was a show where they were so similar to Shooty's first season, a show where they were so cocky at the beginning and it tanked. And then they, unlike Shooty's era, where they didn't film it back to back, they had the option of course correcting. So they put in some more classic monsters. You then, am I right? They then brought in Captain Jack for a cameo at that point as well.
Yes.
So it was all going back to kind of what I call the Tennant trough, the Eccleston trough, just to try and prop it up.
It was like
the same show. Keep watching.
It was like feeding off its early New Who. They couldn't go further back. But I have to say, knowing what they've done with Sutek and that, leave it all alone, please. So Jodie, what did she want from her Doctor? Okay, she's beyond excited when she got the role. Do you know what I'd have bought? If it's going to happen, I'd have had her in that outfit that she actually did the
100%.
Much better. And her face looked straight then. I kind of, she looked all right. She looked as though, oh gosh, she's going to be serious. But as soon as she opened her mouth, it wasn't quite the same. So if I get to what her plan was, and obviously I put things in the wrong order because I'm a contrarian. She felt that her Doctor had this beautiful kind of relationship with Yaz. Oh, I didn't see it. Of course, most fans are saying, when did this happen? When did this relationship happen? She wasn't a very good copper. She didn't seem to do much. I thought she was a bit dead. I don't know. It was limited.
Wasn't it, mate, when again, I'm paraphrasing. Please correct me, chat, if I'm wrong. But didn't there come out? It started as a movement on TikTok or something
Yes.
like that, Phasmin, and wasn't there the talk? And I think one of them did an interview where they'd said that Jodie Whittaker had pitched it to Chris Chibnall and said we should include that, because that's what the audience wants. So they, again, if that's true, one, yes, it's terrible and it shows how badly it's gone down the drain. Two, it shows how desperate they are because they knew the viewing figures were cratering. And three, well, again, it shows the demise of the show and what was to come, because they were desperately trying to get the next trending thing on TikTok to keep the show relevant.
They were trying to make it into a soap opera.
Yeah,
Doctor
exactly.
Who is asexual. He's above
Yeah.
all things, but of course not in this case. I thought that Chris's writing of the relationship development between Yaz and the Doctor was really beautiful and peppered throughout the seasons, so it didn't come out of nowhere. Well, it felt
It
like
did.
it did. And I think that just naturally bounced off how we are with each other. So basically what they're saying is we're friends in real life, so we wanted to do the same again on the show. When does the acting bit happen? Even now, obviously they've got new people to invest in and new adventures to go, and this is when they're talking about the big finish stuff. So there was that discussion there. So if I go backwards to obviously Chris Chibnall's beliefs in what he wanted from the Jodie Doctor, and I wish that bloody TARDIS. I always knew I wanted the 13th Doctor to be a woman, and we're thrilled to have secured our number one choice. Her audition for the Doctor simply blew us all away. Jodie is an Now, listen to this, everybody, because this sounds like RTD describing Shooty. So I even change the word. Shooty is an in-demand, funny, inspiring, super smart force of nature and will bring loads of wit, strength and warmth to the role. Let's be honest, when RTD mentioned Shooty, he almost said the same thing and he blew them away. This is how they talk now, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it's PR narrative, it's they're saying it, but also you could almost see a marketing or PR guru sat next to them and just basically saying, right, read that, say that, because it's the same cobblers every single time, isn't it? And it's, can I just say, I know you're going to come on to it, about making history is what Doctor Who is all about. No, it's not. Doctor Who has always been about making great science fiction stories, that entertain the general viewer as well as long-term fans. It's not about making history. It's not about saying, oh, we're the first to do this or that or the other. It's make good stories, good science fiction stories, and you failed on every single metric. Think on. Yeah.
Well, guess where I am going to go next? I am going to go to that. Well, actually, I'm not. First of all, I feel as though when we have some of these moments, I do feel as though we need to feel as though we are actually talking about Doctor Who. This will cheer everybody up. There you go. I suddenly feel cleansed. We hadn't had an extermination for ages, and I felt as though there wasn't enough jeopardy in this program.
Now we've got it.
It was getting too heavy, a bit like the Chibnall season 11, and I thought we needed to get some jeopardy and death in. This is the problem with Doctor Who now. There's just not enough blooming happening. No. Although Flux was the opposite. It's like, oh, slow down. What's going on? So we've all spotted the PR narrative froth. And then in the second one, Charlotte Moore, the director of BBC content at the time, making history is what Doctor Who is all about. And Chris Chibnall's bold new take on the next Time Lord is exactly that. The nation is going to fall in love with Jodie. It's a bit like that Star Wars or Sea Devils when Delgado tries to hypnotize you. You are all going to fall in love with Jodie Whittaker. You are all going to fall in love and have lots of fun too. I won't go back and bore you all with that graph, but Charlotte, you're on. It didn't work.
Do you know what? Every time they do this and they push this, since Jodie's come in. They've done it with Star Wars. They've done it with Marvel. There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Wesley comes back onto the Enterprise, and they're all playing this game that actually hypnotizes them, and it takes over the ship. And it's him and just one girl that's left, and they're trying to stop them, doing something sinister. This is what they're doing with this show now. It's literally, you will put that device on, you will say, accept that this is fantastic stuff, worthy of a BAFTA, worthy of an Emmy award. It's rubbish. It's poor. It's got nothing to do about the fact that Jodie was a woman that was playing a doctor. I might not agree with it, but it was, the performance was subpar, the writing was subpar, so therefore it's rubbish, and it was dismissed by the general public.
Yeah. So, and you said about the making history thing. Doctor Who was never. Well, when was it supposed to be doing groundbreaking stuff? I was just pleased when it had done some good stories. I don't remember as a kid going, "Oh, this is groundbreaking stuff. They've picked a grey-haired actor. Oh, this is groundbreaking stuff. They've got their first curly-haired actor. Or they've got the first one who's got big eyes. Or they've got the first Doctor with a scarf." For God's sake, this is nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
As a kid, I didn't watch Remembrance of the Daleks with the racism undertones, and going to school the next day and go, "Oh, that's made history. That one has, isn't it? Fantastic stuff." No, I enjoyed the story and I understood what they were trying to say. It's patting yourselves on the back when you've destroyed a kitchen. It's that kind of mindset. It's just stupidity, and you keep hearing it. It must be linked to all these productions, because you hear the same thing with Marvel, you hear the same thing with Disney productions. They all come out with the same nonsense. It is quite extraordinary.
So you've got Jodie thinking they were fizzing, funny and smart, that it was magical and emotional, to be referenced by RTD later on, that her relationship with Yaz was beautiful and organic. And then you've got Chibnall talking about the 13th Doctor, saying her Doctor was a game changer. Yes, I can hear the screeching of brakes, actually. In fact, come on, it was an open secret that the BBC were going to cancel Doctor Who. It was so good. Emphasising her role as the first female Doctor as a deliberate move to widen the show's appeal. Again, this is what RTD2 did. That the Ncuti actor was to widen the appeal. The trans character, to widen the appeal. Belinda Chandra, to widen the appeal. Well, how come we're in the predicament we're in again? So each time they say, we've done representation, we can't be bothered to give you a good script, shut your faces if you don't like it, you're the wrong sort of person, can't stand you, but we'll have your license money. Oh, they'll have that. Basically, it's a move to widen the show's appeal, and each time it's not worked. Oh, that's a funny one, isn't it? He described her Doctor as full of hope. I think I've got cancer. I don't know what to say about that. Oh, really? Full of humour. Hiya, fam. Lots of clowning energy. Now, I think that's a hell of a euphemism. That's doing a lot of weight, that. Clowning energy. What? She's gurning? I didn't like Eccleston gurning. I didn't like John Pertwee gurning. I didn't like McGann and McCoy gurning on that gurney. I'm sorry, the gurning doesn't work in Doctor Who. No gurning. No gurning allowed.
No.
Chibnall aimed to make the 13th Doctor's era accessible to new viewers by having more standalone episodes. Now, didn't RTD2 think, what I'm going to try and do is more of a hard reboot, and then end up mentioning loads of canon all the time? Didn't he say we calling it season 1 because we want to be an entry point to new fans, but then we're going to mention Sutek, and then we're going to mention Susan, and then he was so... The last two showrunners say one thing and do another.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? And again, it's the evidence speaks for itself. The general viewing public, for these two eras that have damaged the show, as I've said, arguably beyond repair. These eras have been rejected by the general public. Every time in the last decade that somebody comes out to change an established IP to, you know, a girls brand or to make it LGBTQ or diverse, it fails always 100% of the time. And that has happened. This is another example of it. The Jodie era started it off, and then it was finished off in the RTD era. The evidence shows again that the general public are not receptive to this at all. What the general public are receptive to is, you know, my friend, they're receptive to really well written scripts, well acted scripts. They don't worry too much about CGI for the sake of CGI. It's just write a good story and get good actors to play those roles. You're going to have a good chance of making a success out of it.
Well, I'm saying to Jess there, I'm amazed. I know you're saying she's gobsmacked, but I think maybe it's just kind of shocking that these have got away with it. This was obviously what Chibnall thought of what we were doing. The Doctor is one of television's most brilliant and enduring creations. Oh, he understands the Doctor. The Doctor will still be the same mercurial, funny, strange, contradictory character, an adventure in space and time, gathering up friends along the way and solving problems by thought and wit rather than punches and violence. If you're anything like the crew who work on the series, just a few seconds with Jodie Whittaker's lively, warm, have you got cancer? I don't know what to do. Funny, super smart Doctor will have you willing to follow this Doctor to the ends of the universe. And yet again, Charlotte Moore says, we're making history. You're all going to fall in love with Jodie Whittaker. Here, Chris Chibnall says, a few moments with Jodie Whittaker's lively, warm, super smart Doctor will have you willing to follow the Doctor to the ends of the universe. What's an ITV?
Yeah. And do you know what? Every time when they do these things, what I always laugh at is they have to put that bit in there about, you know, the Doctor will still be the same mercurial, funny, strange, contradictory character. But hang on a minute. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute. You're pushing forward, you know, we've got a female Doctor for the first time. This is the best ever. But they're not quite confident, are they? That's why they've got to put that bit in there about the fact, but it's still going to be the same. Well, no, it's not, because you're altering the show drastically, and you did. So, you know, you were clearly doubting yourselves at the time by having to put that statement in the article.
It's a gift that keeps giving. It's amazing what happens when you look at these things, everybody. So look at this. I have to say, look, whether you want to be fair on the 13th Doctor, I don't think I really saw her as mercurial. I always saw her as quite passive, and the Master seemed to outwit her a lot. You know, she didn't know about the Timeless Children thing. She didn't know about the Fugitive Doctor. She always seemed to be on the back foot. I didn't see this mercurial Doctor like you saw McCoy's in Remembrance. Never saw it. And so, again, it's like the virtue signalling. You say something, but you can't be bothered to put it in the script, and you can't be bothered to put it in the performance. You just tell us. It's a bit like saying, it's called Doctor Who, but it won't look like it. But it's called Doctor Who, so shut up. Basically, when do we actually see it? But you do wonder, and I mentioned it earlier, whether Jodie Whittaker and the first female Doctor is all part of this hymn sheet, John. We heard RTD mention it last week in his Your Manchester interview when he said, I think I was only nudging the LGBT side of everything by 1%. You also have to look at what the others are doing. I find a lot of other science fiction franchises very straight, very masculine, very testosterone. And so that's our space. Do you think that's where Doctor Who can fill its space? And he said that now with Shooty. So basically, I've picked a male, but he's going to be... Well, he's not going to be a straight male. He's going to be, you know, different there. So basically, we've not had... Well, I was saying to you on another stream, we've had a gay Doctor for a very long time now, because if the 13th Doctor always had the hots for Yaz, that takes us back to, what, 2016, 2017?
Yeah.
And so from then on, so for 8 years now, because the David Tennant 14th Doctor fancied Isaac Newton. So for 8 years, we've had a gay Doctor.
And it's been rejected. For 8
and
years.
the ratings are doing that. And I'm a gay man saying, why are you doing this to my Doctor Who? I'm sorry, I didn't ask for it. I don't need this sort of rubbish representation. Talk about Pride Month being too long. 8 years of a gay doctor's too long.
And again, this is the same thing, with 2005 Doctor Who era. I hated the whole romance of Rose and the Doctor, and then the unrequited love of Martha, River and the Doctor getting married, all of that nonsense. I didn't like any of that. I'm on record. I didn't like any of that, and I also don't like the gay Doctor element that they've done for the last 8 years, because the Doctor is an asexual male of his species. He is not interested in any of that. All he cares about is traveling and having the joy of exploring the universe. And then he also wants to stop evil beings from destroying planets and the universe as well. That's the Doctor. There is no, I'm going to dance on the dance floor, as a guy in a dress, in a vest top, in a skirt and a vest top, in my first story. It's absolute nonsense. Not even the Doctor, not even in his worst regeneration crisis would even think about doing that. We thought it was bad when the 6th Doctor tried to kill Perry. That was far worse.
Oh, hold on. So you don't approve of this at all?
Give me the loving.
Now give me love.
Access denied.
I mean, that just screams Doctor Who, doesn't it, mate?
I know. Do you know, I think I want to watch season 1 and 2 on a loop.
Oh, God. Dear me.
I feel like saying those are the. I feel like saying those are the bits that ended up on the cutting room floor, because we had to change the end of season 15 because Shooty was off to LA. How's that going, Shooty? So yeah, there you go on that one.
We think this is bad now, but I'm calling it, and I'll say it. You wait until Shooty, his work's not happening for him in Hollywood, and he starts doing his tell-all interviews and his book that will come out at some point, and that'll be it.
Sack.
Yeah, they always eat their own, don't they? So
I'm sure
that
they
will
do.
happen.
I'm sure they do. And talking about eating their own, I eat my own as well. Here you go. Yeah, they don't last long. It's a high death count on this program. So Jerry, good to see you. I love to see all these new names. It's fantastic. Yeah. When the Doctor's sexuality was never discussed, the show was inclusive. Very good point. Now that the Doctor is explicitly gay, the show's become exclusive. Spot on. This is the point. When you don't make things clear, this is where we have really disliked what Doctor Who Monthly's done with the revisionism. And it is normally around Pride Month. You've seen it in the last couple of years. When they say, if you look at Marco Polo, if you look at those characters in The Time Monster, that scientist, if you look at this, it's not even said. So because there's a gap there in the script, we have now imposed, we think that person was non-binary. No, it just wasn't said. It wasn't relevant to the script. It wasn't relevant to anything. It wasn't speaking to the society then. No, stop imposing your filter on things. And as you're saying, Jerry, if you have a generalized character, a universal character, the Doctor is an alien after all, then he can represent us all. Our hopes for being a hero, our hopes for being a bit braver, our hopes for being able to stand out from the crowd if we dare.
Yeah.
But he was always above us. But that's inclusive, because we can all say, do you know what? I feel as though that's a character I like. But if you suddenly say that person's gay or straight or this, suddenly it spoils it. I have to say, if I was back in my teenage years yet, John, and they'd said that the doctor was gay, and there's me toying with whether I come out or not, I think it would have ruined it because I wouldn't have wanted to say I like Doctor Who in case people say, "Oh, is that because you're gay?" I'd have backed off.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
too dangerous. So, Jerry, your point is so on point. I've
absolutely.
repeated it in different ways. I think you're right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Too dangerous, too dangerous. So Chibnall has reflected on things. I wish he'd. Oh, God. Timeless Children. We did review it. We tried to be fair. We tried to review it. But we ended up, I think John Daly ended up saying the word hack a lot. It was just too much.
Swear jar. Did he have to put a lot of money in the swear jar? Did he?
Oh my God, he did. So basically, this is what he was asked about Jodie Whittaker's time as the Doctor. She changed the game. Oh, now everybody, just put your tea down, put your drink down. I don't want you to drop anything. Here we go. She changed the game. She changed history in terms of Doctor Who. I think what she's brought is a Doctor who is full of hope, positivity, and generosity. And I think that these times really needed that. Oh, here we go, dark times. I
Yeah.
think she's shown off her incredible sort of clowning side, the humour that she can do, which maybe some people didn't know. I didn't want to know. I think she's enriched the character of the Doctor, as all actors who play the Doctor do. But it's an incredibly bold and brave performance. Yeah, I named the pantaloons straight away. And she took responsibility for the Doctor being a woman. Eh? Well, she is a woman. What's she going to do? She took it on her shoulders. Well, I don't know what else you can do. And represented, and that was not a given. I
Unbelievable.
think it was. That was her strength and decision and power. I think she has been utterly magnificent. She exceeded all of our expectations. Who've you asked? She's given a whole generation of young girls and women. Why just them? As Jerry said a minute ago, why just them? What about boys? A chance to feel that they are the Doctor also. And that was always the purpose from the start of this era to widen the net. Really? What? What?
Widen the net. You know, the net has been widened so much now that there's a massive hole in it, and all of the viewers have fallen through and gone on to do enjoy other things. I mean, these people, again, I go back to what I said earlier, and I've said on previous shows, there should have been someone in place to basically push back on it and say, no, if you're coming in to produce Doctor Who, you are going to respect the history of the show. We don't need any of this nonsense. But they didn't. They allowed them to do it. And I don't think we're coming back from this, from what they've done. You know, it's absolutely disgraceful. And again, how many times over the last 10 years, Brendan, have we seen that? It's incredibly bold and brave.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's the classic, you know, go-to for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, now is they're bold and brave, they're stunning and brave. You know, all of that nonsense. It's like, no, tell us about the performance that was actually brilliant. Give examples of where she was actually first class. Then we'll take a look. If we're wrong, we'll correct our opinion. But I'm willing to bet that we're 100% right.
I just found that.
Well,
Please tell me people in the thread who liked her either, but I'm trying to think of a story really where she was the one full of agency. I found in a lot of them she was perplexed, confused. That was part of the script, which is, you know, she didn't know what was going on. Even in the Timeless Child, there was a bloke who interceded at the end to save the day while she ran off. Never a good look. I just and that moment, I think we all remember it. It's in our nightmares, and counselling is available. I should put a kind of all the agencies up at the end, like they do after the BBC soaps.
yeah.
You know that moment in Power of the Doctor. I know when we were in Rasputin's lair, and the Daleks and the Cybermen are there for the disco. It's a bit like Studio 54 for Cybermen.
Yeah. Why do you do this to me? Why do you bring these memories back when I've suppressed them? Why?
It's because my counsellor tells me you've got to let them out. It's like
Misery
a
loves
boil.
company.
Yeah, it's like a boil. You have to let it, lance it. Get the pus out. So basically, honestly, that moment when a Cyberman and a Dalek looked at each other going, are we in this story?
Yeah,
When do I get taken seriously? It's a disco with Boney M. What is going on? And
yeah,
again, the doctor was imprisoned in the middle. It was like Pandarica again. And she was like, And then, of course, they had that very stupid idea that she would have bits of Sylvester's costume, celery, and it's become hocus pocus. When William Hartnell regenerated into Patrick Troughton, he was wearing the trousers. Is that,
yeah,
that it's the same trousers, and they're either baggy or they're not. We all know the game with regeneration.
yeah,
Suddenly, you couldn't do that when it went from a woman to a man because David Tennant might be confronted by that, although he's really into the trans issue. Then, of course, you have the bi generation where we have to see his white boxers because he has passed the Daz doorstep challenge, and so we were advertising. So no,
Well, can I just say though, but this shows the hypocrisy of Russell T Davies as well. If you believe in all of this movement as you suggest you do, you should have committed to having Jodie's outfit on Tennant at the beginning of it. If you've got no problem with it, if it's all about diversity, you should have done that. You should have pushed forward, but you didn't do that. This is another thing where they pick and choose as they go along. It's oh, you've put that picture.
I know. Sorry, folks.
It's swine. Oh dear
He's
me.
speechless now. He's speechless. I have to say, where do you start with this? This was almost like a trans messaging before its time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was on the precipice, wasn't it?
I, I don't know where your appendage goes. I mean, it worries me if you're going to deliver a baby from your own body. You might drop a bollock.
Well,
So
comes out your left nostril, Brendan. Didn't you know that?
I'd choose cesarean. Sorry. There's no way out. It'd have to be cesarean.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, if I attempt to give birth and I do a cesarean, the only thing they'll get out of me is a kebab from last night. That's it. There's no baby in there.
Now this
Wake
is
up,
when I would.
people.
This is when I really would like to get Sunny on, and I mean to get back to Sunny because I want to do a one-to-one with Sunny. Write to me, Sunny, as well, because I don't know which is the best way, X or whatever. But Sunny, what the F is happening? Have you not seen this episode? Oh, I can educate you, Sunny. Oh, there's some great episodes you've missed, and you must catch up on in the back catalogue. Sunny, are you missing out? You're missing out.
Can I just say it, Sonny? It's stunning and brave. Okay.
Yes,
there we go.
It's making history. I mean, that certainly is making history. I mean, it's ticking. Is that ticking almost every box you could now? That's really going for it, isn't it? And Bradley Walsh, bless him, must have been going, will my son get his act together so we can get out of this show and I can just get on with, doing holidays with my son. Dear me.
I think where I was, I think with Doctor, I think I was emotionally broken. Was I think the laser shoes episode, where Graham was wearing the laser shoes. That was something that that I struggled with. I needed to have therapy after that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to act. Oh, here we go. Does everyone remember that episode? These are the great hits. It's very masculine, this, apparently. Dear me. Honestly,
gosh.
it's worrying, isn't it? It's so worrying that I think I need to kind of detoxify the atmosphere. Yeah, it was needed then, I think. It was going too far. Because when you really think of the Jodie Whittaker era, my God, did we have stuff. Now, he was asked, here we go, if you pick your top 2 or 3 favourite episodes in the Jodie Whittaker era, what would there be? I'd have to have a really long think, but it's definitely more than 2 or 3. Oh, really? Gosh, the ones that I really loved looking back were things like Spyfall, Rosa, Demons of the Punjab, Kablam, Fugitive of the Jadoon, Ascension of the Cybermen, War of the Sontarans, Village of the Angels, Eve of the Daleks. Is everyone noting this in the thread? But
I
actually, there's loads of them that I really love and that I'm really proud of. Oh, right, okay.
it's I mean, don't get me wrong, mate. I mean, I could be completely wrong on this, but it's almost like the person that's written this article, they've just added those episodes in as part of the article. You know, that's the vibe I get. It's funny that, isn't it? You know, because they don't kind of roll off the tongue, do they? You know, normally, you know, you ask someone who's played a part, you know, oh yeah, I love Genesis of the Daleks. It's a favorite of mine as an example. You don't suddenly go, well, yeah, Spyfall, Rosa, Demons of the Punjab,
Unless it's,
Bam. You know, you got
unless,
them tattooed up your arm.
unless it's, I mean, obviously, this is Chris Chibnall, so whether he's like
Yeah,
the
that's
father who
him.
can't name his favorite kid, but I don't know. Are people finding that those are their favorites? I mean, me and Jamie, I haven't watched, but I won't go through them, but I checked out Rosa again, partly because I wanted to check a few things, because I'm actually quite critical of that episode. I know why it should be seen as great because of the history of it. However, I didn't know why the Doctor was in it.
No,
We might as well have just stayed a drama about Rosa Parks. Why distract us with this stupid woman who sits on a bus in pantaloons?
yeah, and you got you know Spyfall. I remember that one actually. I did see, and I actually thought to myself, I thought, do you know what? The way what's his name is playing the master at the beginning of that story, where he's disguised and he's got, you know, the 14 times magazines in his house, you know, I thought I liked the way that is being portrayed as the master. I was okay with that. But then, as we were talking about the other day, mate, what I hate in New Who is as soon as he reveals himself, he goes straight to Insanity Master again, which
Yeah,
completely put me off. And it's like, no, I've said to you, you know, I just want a Delgado type English gentleman type master who will smile at you, be devious, and then when you're not looking, he'll kill you. You know, that's the kind of master I want. Like, I wished we got more Jacoby because his War Master's awesome,
yeah.
but
Well, Tomboy Chick, Spyfall Part 1 falsely got my hopes up. I actually thought we might get some decent Who. Sunny Waffles, Spyfall 1 was okay. Again, isn't it funny about these showrunners that they can never land the second episode? No wonder they don't want to do episodic. And then also David Harding, the only Whittaker episode that I could say I enjoyed on some level was Spyfall Part 1. I thought it was fun and I was genuinely surprised by the Master's reveal, but I really didn't like Part 2. Yeah, this is when it all goes off the rails.
I I will also say, mate, and I'll put myself on record, and I think I might have said it before, but Jodie Whittaker's era, from what I've seen of it, is head and shoulders better than the RTD2 and Shooty era, purely because where Russell T Davies has drastically tried to alter the substance of the show, at least there were elements in it that you could think this is Doctor Who. Like, you had monsters in it, you had Daleks, you had Cybermen. You didn't get any of that with RTD2. So it's so much better than the Shooty era, but that's a pretty low bar, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've got Duncan saying Spyfall was only saved by the cliffhanger. Mickey saying the worst female Doctor outfit somehow. She had so much choice. She did pick it, by the way. She did pick it. Dalek Lives Matter. Why not set Rosa in modern day London buses with minority ethnic imported teen thugs who would... Yeah, there's different ways of doing it. As you know, I think they missed a trick there, because if you're going to show Alabama, you're going to have to show lynch mobs, and you're going to have to maybe put Ryan in jeopardy at the end of episode 1. Instead, they made it a wham bam thank you ma'am, one episode. We missed the point. Show not tell. What happened to that? So there you go. The Doctor in various predicaments. Sometimes she looks almost serious. I have few people have said it in the thread that too many TARDIS crew as well, too many different issues, many of them never resolved. So poor Tosin, who had what was that way spatial awareness? He had a problem on his bike, didn't he?
Oh yeah. Well, that was the beginning of it, wasn't it? Where I was on the edge of my seat, wondering whether he was actually going to ride that bike in a straight line without falling off. I mean,
Yeah.
that kept me going for weeks. That did.
Him, Tosin Cole, I felt so sorry for because it's a bit like Carol Ann Ford, because she thought she was playing this amazing character as a young actor. And as you know, she ended up doing a lot of screaming and acting like a kid. And that's why she left, as we all know. And Tosin Cole, with this apparently groundbreaking, history making new version of Doctor Who, went from I've got kind of issues that I've got to show on the telly to sucking his thumb. As a man, a decent looking man sucking his thumb. No wonder people leave because virtue signalling was not delivering. That was not a great representation of a male black companion. To have him look as pathetic as that, and actually, dyspraxia, as Jerry is saying, and Robert played. Yeah, thank you. It was only really shown in that first episode or two, wasn't it? And then it was forgotten conveniently.
He dismissed it, Chibnall, didn't he? Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah, and so basically, Jodie said she pitched it wrong. I think a few things were made wrong in that era. John, it is a worrying thought process to think that we've had to face mistakes, misdirections, missteps for quite a long time now. You do wonder whether Doctor Who can recover because remember, as I said in the show last night, you've got the audience are very cynical now. The BBC executives it's like relentless noise in their ears. They can't stand hearing about this stupid programme and us stupid fans who are fixated on details. They just want, it's blather. So
yeah.
It's been a horrible one tonight in a way, this news item. Can't choose the news. It was just there. But it is interesting to go back over in another way because it's an era I have tried to avoid a little bit.
I think what this shows as evidence as well is just how poor the quality of executive is at the BBC these days, that they're allowing commissions like this to get through. They're allowing things to be changed from, the core elements of what made Doctor Who. This is a massive indictment on, the BBC and what decisions they make on the productions. I mean, you've only got to look at their output now and to see how poor it is. It's such a shame. I mean, again, previous execs in previous decades, this wouldn't have been commissioned at all. They might have gone with a female doctor. I'll give you that, but they would have certainly pushed back on a lot of stuff like the Timeless Children because they would have done their research beforehand. These execs, whoever they are, they've not. They're 100% responsible for the destruction of what has happened to a wonderful show that we adore.
Yeah. And now I've got some love. I mean, and the Cosmos Runner, and lovely to hear you. Let's get 2,000 subscribers. I can't believe I'm getting close. I actually can't believe it. Me and John talked before either of us had a channel, and it's weird, isn't it? It's really weird to even be thinking of a number like that. And John's going to get there in the end with Sci-Fi Chronicles 79. Check him out in a minute. I'll give him a chance to advertise in a moment.
I'm gaining on Brendan. I've only got about 1,500 to go. So, you watch yourself. Keep a look in the rearview mirror, mate.
What do they say? Never compare. They do. It's not healthy for you. You just think... Yeah. Focus on your own growth, and it works. Dalek Lives Matters. The last 5 years of the show has been littered with propaganda that only whites are racist and bigoted, and I don't even like reading that out. Dalek Lives Matters. It's so uncomfortable, isn't it? And yet you should be talking about escapism on some planet. You just think, oh, for God's sake, it's got so parochial. Yeah. Craig Dunlop. Ryan went on a journey in that season from not being able to ride a bike to being able to ride a bike. I mean, sorry, I missed that arc. Yeah, I mean, oh God, yes, that was
Well, well, I'm glad you've told me that, Craig, because that means I need to order the box set and go back and finish it then, because it sounds like that is the arc that I've always wanted to
That's
see.
very challenging. I mean, Caroline Ford, this, she thinks about I had to play somebody alien at my
Yeah.
young age, but Tosin Cole he had to kind of work out what it's like not to be able to ride a bike and to then learn to ride a bike. It must have been,
Oh,
gosh, I
terrible.
wonder if they went and did method acting on that one or something. I mean,
It
it's really
stabilizes.
yeah. And then what can you imagine? Oh God, I bless him. I'd love to hear when he read in the script he had to suck his thumb. I just, and I want to know why the script writer thought that was a good look. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
would you ask Ian Marter to do that? Would you ask Tom Baker to do that? I just wonder. There's a level where you go, no, don't do that.
you know what? With him, he left because he went on to an American production. It was, I forget the series, but it was a big series in the US. I can't remember what it was called, but it shows again there must be talent with these actors. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what is it about Doctor Who in the last sort of since 2017 where potentially good actors are terrible in the productions and then they go on and do other things? Could it be that the script is awful? The direction is terrible? Could that be part of it? I mean, that's a wacky idea, but that's for another time. But certainly they do well elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm the same with, I'm a Middlesbrough supporter, and where, Gareth Southgate was our manager and then he goes on to be the England manager, or
Yeah,
Steve McLaren was our manager and then goes on to do Man U or something. I don't like to see a player or a manager leave my club and then do better elsewhere, because then I think I've been shortchanged. And it's the same with the Doctor. It's the same with the actors. And you're thinking, you know, leave your blood on the studio floor. Show me your blood, sweat, and tears. Show me everything. Now, in
yeah,
his case, I'm not blaming him at all. There was just nothing in the
nothing.
script. Sharon D. Clark was the wife of Bradley Walsh,
Yeah,
and they killed her off. I mean, for God's sake.
yeah, I know. Yeah, because
Mind you,
she's got hasn't she got a detective series on Channel 5 now
yeah.
or something?
Mind you,
So
look at Olivia Colman.
yeah,
She was
yeah,
in it for seconds, wasn't she?
yep, she was crazy.
I know. So sorry, I was interrupting them, but you know what I mean. I was
Yeah,
just thinking of
yeah,
examples. So there you go. We've done the rounds again. Great to have John on. John, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79. And do tell everybody what's going up. What's up at Sci-Fi Chronicles 79?
Well, I'm doing the same movie and science fiction reviews. I hopefully, with the internet issues, are now sorted. So next weekend I'll be back to doing my Stargate SG1 watch-alongs. I've got some more Stargate videos that are going to be coming out as well, just talking about the lore of the show, and yeah, just coming on and recording, if there's any breaking news and entertainment as well, or science fiction. So it's a lot of fun, and I've got a Planet of the Apes review that's recorded that'll be going out very soon as well, so keep your eyes peeled on that one.
Yeah, that's one of those I like. Is that the movie one?
Yeah. So, well, we're doing all of it. So we're doing the original Heston Planet of the Apes, and we're doing all the movies. We're doing the TV series from the 70s, and we're doing the animated series as well. So,
Yes,
do you remember?
I haven't got that. Have I got them? I loved the TV series. Was that Sunday night?
Yes,
Sunday night.
fantastic
Did
series.
you ever?
That.
Did you ever ask your mum to take you to all the VG shops with the peas wrappers to get the cardboard Planet of the Apes masks?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I tell you what, mate, as well. That intro for that Planet of the Apes TV series
Great.
is terrifying, where you get
Yeah.
the apes onto the horses at the back in the
The
sun,
silhouette.
holding their gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Great stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what it should be. Jess,
Yeah.
lovely to have you again. Well, and
Yeah.
I say that to you all, to be honest. Lack of creativity, imagination, quality writing, without the egotists, the self-centered narcissists, shoving their self-righteous rhetoric down. Oh, Jess, I've troubled you tonight. Sorry. That was the news that triggered you. I'm sorry. I should have had a trigger warning at the beginning of the program. I'm sorry about that. Maybe when you saw it was Jodie Whittaker, maybe you kind of knew. Garbage, who's been moderating with Divan and Dragon. I remember when they said someone is coming back. Turned out to be Graham's wife. Wasn't it then that we saw the frog? Chibnall, you are a clown. I think that's what that's got. We've got the bird who's caught us live. I think Jodie was not relatable emotionally. The high intense monologues just seem fake. You're right. It's a funny one, isn't it? I agree with your criticism and observation. The trouble is, in a funny sort of way, the classic doctors were never known for being very emotional. So it's a funny judgment, but I know what you're saying. If you want this era to be great for dark times and an emotional doctor, you hear all the slaver, then make sure they are caring, because they didn't seem to be. And what made it worse is while they were focusing on, I've got this burning love of Yaz. Meanwhile, Graham, I've got cancer. I think it's come back. I'm really stressing out. Oh, yes. Yeah, but I know, but can you listen to me for a second? And then there's a lad in the corner sucking his thumb. It's like the lads were totally ignored. And when they got John Bishop in, I thought it got even worse. It was actually the Legend of the Sea Devils. I hated what they did to him. They'd cosplayed John Bishop to dress him like a stupid pirate. For the two women in the TARDIS to take the mick out of a man. And I just thought, when was this allowed? When was this progressive?
Yeah. And do you know, this is my geek element, sci-fi geek element, but do you know what, one thing that really irritates me now with New Who? I like a doctor who's going to regenerate. He's mortally wounded or he's poisoned. Every cell in his body is dying. And he basically, he gets some words out and then he moves on. What I hate now is, you've got, the 10th Doctor does his big goodbye speech, and he does his tour, as he's about to regenerate. Then you've got Jodie Whittaker's Doctor who's sat on top of the TARDIS with Yaz in space eating an ice cream, and it's like, no, I want to see a Doctor that is about to change because every cell in his body is dying. And he's lying down. I don't want any of this standing up nonsense anymore either.
The thing is, this is when the actors show their grit. Joan Collins maybe not wearing makeup. This is when they really go for it.
Yeah.
And I thought you'd see Jodie Whittaker, like Peter Davison, ripped costume, mud everywhere, looking rough. I'm dying.
Yeah,
John Pertwee, they made him so pale when he fell out the TARDIS. Those moments, it's their moment of frailty. I didn't feel as though the Jodie Whittaker Doctor just went, oh, the blossom is blossom. I'm a hay fever sufferer. I'm not sure about this.
Didn't look ill at all. Didn't look ill at all.
No, it was just a nice moment. Paul, nice to see you. Didn't Eve of the Daleks rip off Groundhog Day? John, did it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, 100%. They've taken that idea, the time loop element. It's not new. It's been done in sci-fi before, but yeah, they did rip it off.
Right. Okay. You're more of the expert on that than me. So thanks for that. So basically, I suppose we will just do this one. Oh, Flux, you washed him. There we go. So we've advertised John's Sci-Fi Chronicles 79. We'll be on again when I've decided we'll be on again. At the moment, I'm enjoying not really having a schedule. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your chat. Thank you, John. See you again, everyone.
Cheers, guys.